currently in Nigeria, the 14 years jail term for homosexuals still stand. In fact, when people of same sex hug tightly or show affection towards themselves publicly, the next slang that you hear from behind is you are joking with 14 years of your life. So in all of that torture, in all of that beating, the threats that you must have gone through, you never gave up on being gay?
You don't give up on being gay. You cannot give up on being gay. You know, I get asked this question so many times, and I'm like, when was the last time you thought of giving up on being straight? You know, this, and again, you know, this fits into our understanding of what sexuality is.
All right, we'll begin today's conversation taking our quote from Bob Newhart, an American actor and comedian. He once said, "The problem is that we live in an uptight country. Why don't we just laugh at ourselves? We are funny. Gays are funny. Straights are funny. Women are funny. Men are funny. We are all funny. And we all do funny things. Let's laugh about it." Interesting. Now let's take our second quote, and this one is from Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, Ugandan politician and retired senior military officer who is the 9th and incumbent president of Uganda. He once said, "You cannot call an abnormality an alternative orientation. It could be that the Western society, on account of random breeding, have generated many abnormal people." Our next quote is from Yusuf Hamid, an Indian scientist and billionaire businessman. He once said, "AIDS today is not a death sentence. It can be treated as a chronic illness or a chronic disease." Okay, so our last quote is from Ryan White, an American teenager from Indiana who became a national poster child for HIV and AIDS in the United States after failing to be readmitted to school following a diagnosis he had on AIDS. He once said, "Rumors of sneezing, kissing, tears, sweat and saliva spreading AIDS caused people to panic." Okay. All right then. Let's see how all of this quote relate to what we will be discussing today. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from Captain's Television Studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and queer, that's the LGBTQI plus persons in Nigeria, face legal and social challenges not experienced by non-LGBTQ residents. Now, the LGBTQ plus rights are generally infringed upon, and homosexuality is illegal in all of Nigeria and punishable by up to 14 years jail term in the conventional court system. There is no legal protection against discrimination in Nigeria, a largely conservative country of over 200 million people. Very few LGBTQ plus persons are open about their orientation, their sexual orientation, and violence against LGBTQ people is frequent. Many LGBTQ persons or Nigerians are fleeing to countries with progressive laws to seek protection. Both male and female same-sex sexual activity is illegal in Nigeria. The maximum punishment in the 12 northern states that have adopted the Sharia law is death by stoning. That law applies to all Muslims and to those who have voluntarily consented to application of the Sharia courts. In southern and in the south rather, and under the circular criminal laws of the northern Nigeria, the maximum punishment for same-sex sexual activity is 14 years imprisonment. The Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act criminalizes all forms of same-sex unions and same-sex marriage throughout the country. But then, looking into the lives of the LGBTQ plus community in Nigeria, it is a slowly thriving community, despite the fact that it's being considered a crime and frowned upon by most of this over 2 million Nigerian people. On the other side, HIV and AIDS is affecting a large number of people around the world, but they say this disease can be controlled if awareness is created among people and the stigmatization completely obliterated. Bisi Alimi, born Ademola Iyodade Ojo Kazim Alimi, is a Nigerian gay rights activist, public speaker, blog writer, HIV and LGBTQ advocate who gained international attention when he became the first Nigerian to come out on television. Bisi Alimi has opened up on his battle with a human immune virus, that's HIV, as he celebrates his 47th year birthday and 18 years of living with the virus. According to the rights activist, he realized HIV doesn't kill. Rather, it is the stigma, the shame, and the discrimination that kill those with the virus. Bisi Alimi will be joining us via Skype from Lagos to share his story. Do join us again.
A proposed law titled A Bill for an Act to Amend Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act 2023 to prohibit cross-dressing and other related matters, sponsored by Muda Lawal Una, has created controversy as members of the LGBTQ community have kicked against it and continue discrimination against their humanity. Activists and members of the community on Sunday protested the continuance of the bill as they called on lawmakers to let them express themselves.
The latest thing we are hearing is that we can't go out and express ourselves, and we have to express ourselves. In Nigeria, Nigerian human rights says that every single human have the right to express themselves peacefully, and that is what we are here to do, and we will definitely do that, no matter what. And nobody have any rights, no police have any right to arrest us, because we know our rights and we stick to it, and we will have this protest, and we have more coming, and we will have pride. So people have to, when we say enough is enough, we mean we are tired of trying to accept us. If we can be able to accept ourselves, it is enough. Yes. So we have come together as one voice to say enough is enough. We have been drowned, we have been humiliated, we can't take it anymore. I personally, I am out here, I am proud to be a transgender woman. Oh my God, I glorify myself for that. And look at it, these are my family.
We are here to say enough is enough to the insecurities in the country. The government should rather focus on education, should rather focus on the roads, should rather focus on fuel scarcity, should rather focus on good roads, should rather focus on accountability instead of looking for ways to criminalize and make people targets, because just as the SSMPA became a law, the masses saw that they could just walk up to LGBT persons, mob them or blackmail them or extort them. So we are here to say enough is enough to the extortion, enough is enough to the blackmail, enough is enough to our voice not being heard. We are here to say that our voice should be heard because we are humans, we matter, and of course, queer lives matter.
Inclusion of this cross-dresser bill, it will affect a lot of things. So we are here today, we are fighting of Nigerian government, we are fighting for our inclusion, we are fighting for our rights, injustice, food security, we are fighting for good roads, we are fighting for inclusion in decision making, we are fighting for giving us homes, giving us jobs, giving us health care. We are talking of allowing us to express ourselves, to be who we are. If for instance, I'm with my flag, I cannot wear something like this to go off. There's place I wanted to go and buy something like this. I was like, can you give me a rainbow? They were like, sorry, they don't sell something like this. The discrimination is everywhere. The mobbing is everywhere. So many trans women has been killed. So many trans men have been killed. So many LGBT people has been killed. So many people has been saved, or so many people has been brutalized by police people, by bloody civilians, by like a lot of people, transphobic, homophobic. They are out there criminalizing us.
There are also calls for the SSMPA to be repealed to allow the LGBTQ plus community freedom and protect them from harassment and assault.
We also continue our pushing on the social media. We also continue our pushing by lobbying into the state legislature, lobbying into the government house, lobbying into the Human Rights Commission, for them to also understand that we are human, irrespective of our sexuality. We are human. Our right matters a lot.
How we are approaching the elections, we don't really have a community candidate that we are pushing, and part of the reason is that a lot of the people that are where that are actually in politics, right, they are also members of the ruling class. These people are rich and they would literally protect their own class interests when they get into power, and like they're even there right now. Like we see you, they are there right now and they're protecting their class interests. They are not in solidarity with this community. And so what we are actually focusing on, right, is agitations that go beyond the electoral politics. Like even if you elect the next, APC or PDP, like dictator that is going to keep oppressing queer people, we are going to keep fighting, right? And we also have organizations that also within the political space, organizations like the Socialist Workers and Youth League that came out in support of this protest and came out against the Socialist Workers and Youth League. So we have political, actors, political organizations that are in solidarity with us. In terms of candidates, just because of how Nigeria's politics is structured, where only rich people can actually contest elections credibly and win. Because of that, the people that are getting into these places that are queer are also rich, and rich people will always choose being rich over whatever else. They will always choose their class interest.
As a society's progress is judged by the quality of life of its most marginalized, it is pertinent that all demographics are provided with protection of lives and properties and freedom. Amadi Nogbewe, reporting for Kaftan Television.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you're right on time for the interview. Our guest on the show today is Bisi Alimi. He is an LGBTQ community advocate. Glad to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Great. All right, now let's get started. Let's get up close and personal. You were born in Mushin, Olosha, for people that know that area. So first, tell us how it was growing up in that city. Do you still visit the place?
Yes, I still do. I still visit Mushin once in a while when I'm in Nigeria. I'm very proud of where I come from. There are different views about Mushin, and people have their different perception of the area, but it's made me who I am today. It's made me wherever it is that the world see, and it's one place that I'm extremely proud of. Yes, it's underserved. There are a lot of poverty, there are a lot of crime, there are a lot of challenges, but I still believe it's a place that has huge potential to contribute to the development of Lagos State, but more importantly, Nigeria as a whole.
I can imagine. All right, so at what point, let's talk about your sexual orientation. At what point did you realize and accept your sexual orientation, and what exactly led to that place of finding and knowing you?
So, I knew about my sexuality when I was very young. I always tell people I knew about my sexuality as young as 8 years old. I knew that I wasn't like every other kid I was playing with on the playground in primary school. And when I went to secondary school, I knew about this as well. I think what stopped me for a long time, and I talk about myself in particular, was the fact that I didn't have the words to convey who I was at that time. So I couldn't put it into words and say, this is who I am. But I knew then that I have feelings for men. And I think that growing up and asking questions and reading and trying to find myself gave me a lot of opportunities to find me and be able to express that. So when I came out on TV, I was 29 then. At that time, I formed the words, I formed the identity. I'm very comfortable in who I am. And so when I sat down and I did that interview with Fumi Yoda, I was doing it as someone who has fully accepted himself. So it was never really a point so much that I didn't, apart from the time that, you know, I became a born again Christian just so I could possibly cure myself of my sexuality. And this desire to cure is informed by hatred, by homophobia, and stigma, not necessarily because I wasn't comfortable in who I was at that time.
All right, now, so for those who know that area, that's Mushin Olosha in Lagos State, like you talked about, that's like an area that does not sleep. You sleep on a bike, they will jostle you before you wake up. So how was it like being a gay and living in Mushin Olosha, dealing with homophobes?
I feel that there's a misconception and an expectation that Mushin is very homophobic, and that I had to grow up with such it. I would say that Mushin happens to be one place that I've been comfortably gay all my life.
Oh, really?
I still go back, like I said, and I go back as a gay man, and I walk around my area, and people recognize me, people ask me questions about my family, about my husband. So there is never a point where growing up in Mushin, I had to face these things. I think what I faced while growing up in Mushin was not necessarily a Mushin homophobia. It was a religious homophobia that I had to deal with in Mushin. And those religious homophobia comes in place like from Muslims and from Christians.
Okay.
People who were trying to justify their hate through whatever things that they believe in. Mushin has always protected me. Mushin has always got my back. I think I experienced the most aggressive homophobia when I moved out of the area that I was born in, Mushin.
All right, now, so you talked about your family. Now, tell us more about your growing up in a mixed religious background. Your dad is a staunch Muslim who is also a police officer, and then your mom is a staunch Christian from an evangelical mission. Because I'm thinking of the typical Nigerian parents where their first reaction, especially parents of those days, when you tell them such things, they will bundle you and take you to the river and tell people to flog that urge away from you. Did you actually go through all that similar treatment, or something worse, or was it actually a walk in the park?
It was never a walk in the park. I wish it was. I wish it was, because then I wouldn't have to doubt myself for so long. I wouldn't have to go through the things that I went through. Again, I think that to the credit of my dad, he wasn't really fazed about my sexuality. He wasn't really bothered about it. My dad and I, we do get along very well, and we do have conversations. It's somebody I could talk to. It was my dad that introduced me to politics. It was my dad that introduced me to football. I actually do have this cat and mouse relationship with my dad, because if my dad is supporting a team, I remember very well, my dad is from Ibadan and he supports ISCC Shooting Star as a football club. And I intentionally supported the rival, which is Abiola Bates, while I was growing up.
Okay.
And it was just basically to just get on my dad's legs and just have something to talk about with my dad. With my dad, politics was one thing that we had in common. My dad is a strong socialist, and I strongly believe in socialism, and who will vote and talk about our politics. So we're very much ours in my family. But on the other hand, to my mom, she was very, very set in her ways of, heaven and hell, condemnation, and all of those things. And it was that actually pushed religious fanaticism on not just myself, but on my siblings as well, and make me question myself. So it was my mom that made me at 17 thought about, it was my mom that made me go through conversion therapy in the church, because not that she took me there, but because I didn't want her to feel that I am letting her down. It was my mom that took me to the select church
I can imagine.
in my early 20s to the river to the Babbage actually down the road and have me cleansed of my sexuality. It was my mom that would take me to many Christian spiritualists for fasting and prayer because she thought that she needed to do something. My dad really, it really didn't care about all of it. It wasn't really fazed by my sexuality at all.
Okay, so you talked about politics. So we'll talk about politics later. But do you still play football?
I don't play football anymore. I think I was playing football because I wanted to prove to myself and to so many other people that I could be macho. And I wanted that to be my expression of, male masculinity. But I realized that it wasn't for me. So I don't play football anymore. But I still love football. I'm a diehard Chelsea fan. Whatever happens this season, happens this season. I know we're going to come back next season, and I know we're going to do better.
All right, now, so let's talk about the dangers and risk of being gay or an LGBTQ member in a non-tolerant society or country like Nigeria. It might be acceptable in some countries, but not in Nigeria or even in Uganda, last I checked. So then they have not accepted the LGBTQ community, and there's no telling if they will. Even from the reports we had earlier, we had actually earlier before we started the show, we got to know that a lot of people at the higher echelon are secretly supporting the community, but they will never come out openly for fear of being stigmatized. So what kind of danger and risk have you gone through, or any member of your community? What kind of danger have they had to come across?
Let me give you a very recent example. Two recent examples, actually. There's been a case in Bayelsa of a young man that has been accused of homosexuality. And the accusation is that he is a porn star. And let's talk about that within the context of what is allowed and what is not allowed. He is accused of being a gay porn star. He's been arrested, he's been paraded, he's been dealt with. But there are heterosexual porn makers in Nigeria, and I've never seen similar thing happen to them. What happened to him happened not because he's a porn star. Far be from it. What happened to him and what is currently happening to him, because as I'm speaking now, we don't know where that young man is. What is happening to him is because he is a gay man. And Nigeria will never forgive you for being gay and being poor. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is the story. I shared something on Instagram this morning, and a young man came there and said, they arrested a young guy in my area for being gay. They were beating him up. I had to step in and I had to take them away from that. That is the reality of LGBTQI plus people. In the case of women, we see a situation where lesbians are married off to men. We see a situation of where family members organize trigger warning, lesbians to be raped by men with the means of trying to turn them straight. So this is the reality. We see a situation where people lose their jobs in Nigeria because of their sexual orientation, not because they can't do the job. There have been cases that I've been involved in where people are known to be very good at their job, but the reason why they are facing the sack is because of their sexual orientation. So that is how bizarre, weird, and myopic Nigeria as a country and Nigerians as people are. We live what is right, causing us in our face to what has nothing to do with us. And this saddens me because it creates an opportunity where thieves who call themselves politicians can use issues that are irrelevant to the development of the country as a distraction to justify voting and losing the country. It breaks my heart.
Now, we know that currently in Nigeria, the 14 years jail term for homosexuals still stand. In fact, when people of same sex hug tightly or show affection towards others, towards themselves publicly, the next slang that you hear from behind is you are joking with 14 years of your life. So in all of that torture, in all of that beating, the threats that you must have gone through, you never gave up on being gay?
You don't give up on being gay. You cannot give up on being gay. I get asked this question so many times. And I'm like, when was the last time you thought of giving up on being straight? This, and again, this fits into our understanding of what sexuality is and why sometimes I approach Nigerian homophobia from a position of pity and empathy. Because if I have to be upset with Nigerians, I just realize I'm upset with people who are completely ignorant and aloof about what it means to be human beings. They are consumed by their intellectual stupidity to think that they know something that they don't know. Being gay is not like a light switch that I can wake up in the morning, switch on and switch off, and it's not like that. People are born gay just as much as people are born straight. And that begs the question that you asked me, and then we put it back to you. Why would somebody, if gay is a choice, if being gay is a choice, why would somebody choose to be gay in a country like Nigeria? And I hope that straight people can take a step back and ask themselves that question. When you know you can get beaten, you can get killed, you can get jailed, you can lose your job, you can lose your home, you will lose your family. Why would you choose something like that instead of just choosing to be straight and just get on with your life and enjoy your life? If straight people can just take a step back out of their high horses and their ignorance and just ask themselves this very soul-searching question, why would someone in Nigeria, with all the madness and the craziness that happens, why would somebody choose to be gay in Nigeria?
That's a very deep one. Now, with all of these things that you talked about, losing your house, losing your job, or maybe your family, did you go through any of such?
I went through all of those things. I lost my family. Wow. I almost, I remembered when I came out in 2004, my landlady was always in my house and kept saying, you need to move out of this house. I was acting. I lost my acting career because I came out. A lot of things that happened to me. I look back now and I said, Nigeria as a country and Nigerians dealt with me, threw me all shapes and forms of lemon. And I'm glad because I know how to make lemonade. But imagine if I didn't know how to make lemonade, I would possibly have committed suicide. I would have given up on life. I would have had a mental health breakdown. And Nigerians would have turned around and said, the reason I have mental health issue, or the reason possibly I would have committed suicide, is not because that they hate me because I am gay, because they need to absolve themselves of the hatred that they are perpetuating. And these are the things. I went through hell in Nigeria, and it's funny now that people regard me as famous Nigerian LGBT activists. They never wanted me. They kicked me out of the country. But I'm glad because they gave me the opportunity to find myself and to be myself and to be celebrated outside and within Nigeria.
Now, so you were the first Nigerian gay to come out publicly, and since then, or in fact these days, a lot of people just wake up from their sleep and then start dressing like the opposite sex, and then they say they're no longer comfortable in their skin, or they are now they've collected a new gender, or they are transgender. So you have the popular ones who are everywhere, here, there, and everywhere. I'm not going to mention them right now, but we know that when you are searching for someone in an organized society, you can look them up from a general group or association to see if you can find them. So do you recognize some of these popular ones that we have in Nigeria, or are they just using Nigerians to catch crews?
Okay, so Okay, so let me just say this. I know I've said it before, but I will repeat it. People don't just wake up and change their gender. People just don't wake up and be gay. And there's a difference between sexual orientation and gender identity. So people confuse that. Again, it goes back to how much education, and I'm glad you and I are having this conversation. And I'm hoping that your listeners will learn one or two things from this conversation that we are having. So I am a gay man. I'm not trans. I don't intend to be trans. When I wear women's clothing, I wear women's clothing because I'm a performer. I'm a drag queen. A drag queen is a man who dresses up to perform, to entertain, and to make money.
Okay.
And when it does not make them a woman. They remove the clothes and they get on. So you see all of those comedians in Nigeria who are dressing up as women. We will call them drag queens because that's what they're doing. They're dragging. Now that is different from somebody who is a trans woman. A trans woman is someone who the gender that they feel like, that they identify with, is different from the sex that it was assigned to them at birth. And there is a difference between sex and gender. Sex
Okay.
is what you have between your legs. Gender is in your head, whether you see yourself. So somebody might have something in between their legs, but act differently based on their gender expression from that. So that's what we call trans people. So people just don't do trans. People just don't act trans to catch cruise. People are trans. And people don't
Okay.
use trans issues to catch cruise. If people are dressing up and they are using it to catch cruise, we need to ask, who really are these people? But again, who am I to judge? Because the way somebody wants to present themselves is the way they want to present themselves. It's not my place to say whether the way that they're presenting themselves is right or wrong. That's not for me to judge.
Okay, now, so does it mean that a trans can actually not be homosexual? That's what you mean?
Yes,
Okay.
a trans person, a very, very popular trans woman in the world, Caitlyn Jenner, who was part of the Kardashian clan, was never a homosexual. Caitlyn, when she was a street man, who was in a heterosexual relationship, never had a relationship with a man. Now she's Caitlyn. She is now in a lesbian relationship because she has a female partner. So again, like I said, it could be very complicated, but I can break it down. So I am
Okay.
a cisgender gay man, which means that I identify my gender with the sex that was assigned to me at birth. So that makes me cisgender. You, I guess, is a cisgendered woman because your gender is as it affirms your sex that was assigned to you at birth. Meanwhile, if you fall in love with a man, you are heterosexual. If you fall in love with a woman, you are a lesbian. If I fall in love with a woman, I am heterosexual. If I fall in love with a man, I am homosexual. I'm gay. However, if I transition to a woman and I become a trans woman, and I'm in a relationship with either a trans man or a man, a cisgender man, then I am in a heterosexual relationship. Or if I transition to trans woman and I'm in love with a trans woman or I'm in love with a cisgender woman, then I am in a lesbian relationship.
Okay.
That's how far I can break it down.
Okay. Now, there's clearly so much that we can learn and unbundle from this conversation. Let's go on a quick break, and when we return, Bisi Alimi will join us shortly. I will see you later. Don't move a muscle. We'll be right back.
Encourage everyone watching, everyone listening to this program, that HIV doesn't kill. It's a stigma, it's a shame. And the thing about this is, I have a mantra: you cannot shame the shameless. I celebrate the fact that I'm HIV positive. I take my medication, and that is why for 18 years I am as healthy as anyone can be. My appeal to you, if you're watching or listening to this program, is get tested. If you've been sexually active, if you don't know the HIV status of the person you've had sex with, or if you've had an unprotected sex, get tested.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Captain's Television Studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you missed quite a lot. Our guest on the show today is Bisi Alimi. He is LGBTQ advocate, and we've said quite a lot of things. Now, before we went on that break, we talked about quite a lot of things, and you were able to dissect who a transgender and a gay person is. Now, let's talk about you. Living with HIV for 18 years and being a homosexual, how has it been? The stigma, the health, taking care of yourself. Walk us through that journey of how you have been taking care of yourself for the past 18 years, and now you are 47 already. A lot of people would just die at the mention of it immediately at the hospital. How has it been for you?
Well, I mean, it's been a journey, and it's part of my story. It's part of who I am. But I also want to just quickly point something out. Mentioning HIV and homosexual in the same context is very loaded. It's loaded because there is an assumption that HIV affects gay men more. Yeah, it is. For obvious reasons. That is not just because HIV affects gay men. The obvious reason why HIV affects gay men more is because gay men are more likely to experience homophobia, and not just street corner homophobia. I'm talking about institutional homophobia as experienced in the case of Nigeria, where for more than 10 years into the epidemic globally, Nigeria government itself did not recognize the impact that HIV has on the gay community. And when it does it within the spectrum of we will not identify or recognize you, and so we will not be able to provide services for you. So very much so, it is not, I'm not HIV positive because I'm gay. I'm HIV positive because the system that is expected to take care of me felt that I'm undeserving of the care that everyone else have access to, and hence left me at the mercy of lack of sex education, the lack of different tools and materials for me to be able to take care of myself, to make informed choices about having healthy relationships and having healthy sexual lives. So I am HIV positive, I will repeat, not because I'm gay, but because Nigeria is a very hateful place. Now, to go back to the question that you asked about how I've been dealing with this, I've been dealing with this very well, really, really well. I mean, look at me, I look fabulous, if you've not recognized that. And as so many other people that are living with HIV in the world that are refusing to allow themselves to be defined by the hate of people who don't even know their status. Because what we know is the people that give the virus are the people that don't know their status. I know I cannot pass the virus to someone else. And so if we want to have any conversation, it should be about encouraging people, more and more people, to go out and take a test. If you're listening to this program today, if you have been sexually active, and if you've had sex without condom, and you don't know the HIV status of the person that you've had sex with, I would seriously encourage you to go and do an HIV test.
All right, and so how have all of this affected you personally? What was it like 18 years ago when you got that first result saying, showing that you were HIV positive? And I learned that you also lost your best friend to AIDS. Must have been a roller coaster of event for you.
It was indeed a roller coaster of event. It was really, really indeed. I was young. And as a young person, having to deal with all of the drama that comes with newly diagnosed, and not having anyone to talk to or to share, this new thing And I was dealing with my sexuality at the time. So I was graduating from university because it was 2004. I was dealing with my sexuality, and I was just being diagnosed HIV positive. So a lot was going on, and my friends were dying. And but I was lucky to have some very solid, good support network around me. Many people who held my hands and took me through that dark tunnel and showed me the light at the end of it.
All right, so now the Nigerian law on homosexuals signed in January 7, 2014 by the former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan explicitly states the punishment for those who practice homosexuality or are perceived to be homosexuals. But then you came out publicly in Nigeria and you're still living in Nigeria. Does it mean that the law no longer stands, or it has been made subtle to embrace you and your community?
It's just a correction. I don't live in Nigeria. I live in the UK. That's where I live with my family. And then another correction that I need to make is the fact that there is no law banning anyone from being gay in Nigeria. The SSMPA that you alluded to, the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act, only prohibits setting up of clubs and associations, only prohibits same-sex marriage, only prohibits public show of affection. It does not prohibit me being gay. And I would love to see the Nigerian government coming to arrest me whenever I'm in Nigeria on the basis that I am gay. It would be very interesting. And I bet it would be a bigger reality show than Big Brother. Because the reality is this, and it is very simple. Nigeria does not have a law on paper that says people cannot be gay. Nigeria says I cannot get married, which I think in of itself says a lot about the kind of politicians that we vote for. Because the Nigerian constitution in of itself recognizes marriage as a union between a man and a woman. There's never a place in Nigeria that says that marriage is between two persons. Because if the Nigerian constitution had said marriage is between two persons, then I could have anticipated wanting to get married. And then Jonathan and his cohorts in the National Assembly would have anticipated that I wanted to, by any chance, would have wanted to get married, and so make a move and block that. So there was no way I could have. There's no court, there is no church in Nigeria that would have solemnized my marriage, because it's not even recognized in the Constitution of Nigeria. So you ask yourselves, the likes of Abike Dabiri, who was a veteran journalist, and Remi Tinubu, who for some reasons became a senator, and that is open to another conversation, how they were able, with all their intellectual capacity, to sign up to a law that is absolutely bizarre and lack intellectual capacity. For me, it's amazing. And I will repeat it. It says a lot about the kind of people we vote into National Assembly. These are people that are educated but has no idea of what it means to be intellectual. And it saddens me, because 2023 is coming and we will be electing this same set of people who will run this country to the ground. And it deeply does break my heart.
But I recently saw a picture of you having an emotional moment with some of your members, some members of your foundation, talking about all that they went through and how they've been going through being gay or lesbians, the bulls, the backlashes that they've gotten. So do you just come out together to talk about these things? You hold hands together, cry on each other's shoulder? Is that all that it is to the advocacy and the push? Or do you also go the whole 9 yards for your members who have just been beaten blue and black for coming out, or for just, or who has received 14 years jail term? Anyway, what else do you actually do for yourselves and your community members in your foundation?
Thank you very much for that question. First of all, there's no one in Nigeria, in the history of Nigeria, 60 whatever years it is now, there's no one in Nigeria that has been convicted 14 years imprisonment for being gay. Again, it says a lot about it, to the charade and the jamboree that it's the past that is Nigeria, but that is not the issue now. Number two is that my foundation runs a leadership program um, for LGBTQI plus people in Nigeria. But that program is not just only for LGBT people. We also run the program for journalists and lawyers in Nigeria. I particularly am very invested in the principle of leadership, of empathic leadership. And I use my experience, my exposure to help people to rethink who they are, their place in the society, and their contributions to it. And this training and this gift that I give to Nigeria has nothing to do with sexual orientation or gender identity. In the past 6 years, I've trained over 70 Nigerians at different levels, at the executive level, at the management level, and at the entry level, whether it's in the corporate, in the NGO, or even on a personal basis, on making them to realize and rethink leadership and their place in this world. Because I'm very now, here and now. I'm not interested in heaven or hell. It's not my cup of tea. It's about what can you do here? How can you touch life? How can you change life? And the pictures you were alluding to were the pictures of us talking about, our experiences, not just as LGBTQI plus people, but our experiences as human beings. That session you talk about is one exercise I do a lot, which I call the margin and the mainstream. And it's the reality that as human beings, we're never always in the mainstream, neither are we always in the margin. And so when somebody is in the margin, somebody is in the mainstream of that margin. And when somebody is in the mainstream, somebody is in the margin of that mainstream. So how do you understand your power? What do you do with your power? What do you do with your privilege? What do you do with your influence? And how do you support people who could be the victim, directly or indirectly, of your influence? So, like, for example, I'm a man and I have a lot of influence over you. I have a lot of privilege over you as a woman in Nigeria. And that's a fact. That's a reality. If you're my boss and you and I go for a meeting, there are chances that people would think I'm your boss, not for them to think that you're my boss. But how do I use my privilege as a man to assert the fact that you are my boss and make people understand that you are my boss and I'm not your boss? And so these are the things that I'm making people to understand. But also, how can I hear how you feel when people don't recognize you and your achievements and your work in life because you're a woman? And how do I become an advocate for the things that you're being denied in the society? And not on a way whereby I feel privileged or I feel like I'm a superhero or something like that, but on a level playing field of empathy, of camaraderie. So that is what I do, and that was what happening. That was what was happening in that video or in that picture that you saw.
Oh, okay. So May 17th is the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia. So what kind of advocacy do you engage in to commemorate that day?
I was actually here in Lagos, very busy doing some things. But I share content on social media. I talked about it on Instagram and on LinkedIn and on Facebook as well as on Twitter. It's a day for me that actually means a lot. It's a day that I use personally to educate people about the impact of homophobia, of biphobia, or transphobia, and making people, I also open up myself to people to ask me questions. Again, like I said at the beginning of this interview, I do recognize that not all hatred is born out of a desire to hate. Some are born out of ignorance. And when you provide people with education, with information, they're more likely to go on a journey of self-realization and change their ways. And I'm doing the same thing for the Pride Month. Throughout this month, every Friday on Instagram and on Facebook, I'm having conversations with LGBTQ Africans and talking about their journey, their reality of being queer and being African. And this will be another way of me, reaching out to my followers, educating my followers, having soul-to-soul conversation with my followers with the hope that one or two people will go home inspired, educated, and empowered.
All right. So now you see the situation where you don't have heterosexuals blowing their trumpets and advocating for their own sexuality. Why don't you have so much people talking about homosexuality?
How many times have a straight person been beaten up on the street for being straight? Or how many times has a straight person been sacked from work for being straight? How many times has a straight person been denied marriage on the basis that they are straight? How many times has a straight person been called names because they are straight? So when people ask me, why don't we have pride? Why don't we have straight month? Why don't we have straight pride? That's what you do 365 days of the year. So speaking out 1 month or 1 day in a year to acknowledge that we as human beings have committed a crime against humanity for hating a group of people because of who they are, something that they have no control over, just like white people are to black people, just as men are to women. Straight people ask this question, oh, why don't we? It's a simple question. Have you ever experienced any discrimination for being straight? I can say you have experienced discrimination for being a woman. Hence why we have the International Women's Day, to commemorate, to create awareness, to educate people on the plight of women, to do advocacy on this basis. But men don't experience that because they are men. They experience that because of some other things as well. And that's what privilege is.
Okay. Now, so what kind of resonance does your foundation have, or your work have here in Nigeria?
Massive, massive. I am on a mission to financially empower LGBT people in Nigeria. I'm on a mission to invest in LGBT businesses. I'm on a mission to discover, empower, and celebrate the next 10 LGBT millionaires that will change the political landscape of this country, that will change the way that Nigerians see the LGBTQI plus people in this country. That is my mission. And I'm glad people call it the gay agenda. Yes, it is the gay agenda. And I am the gay agenda in Nigeria. And that is a mission that I'm very passionate, I'm very focused, and I'm very dedicated to. Because I think that the gay agenda is a human agenda. And until Nigerians see the humanity of LGBTQI plus people, I will not rest. Because even when I'm dead, my ghost will still come back and continue the work that I've started.
We wish that was even possible. All right, so even as we begin to round up. Okay, you were going to say something.
I said, you never know. You never know.
Interesting. All right, even as we begin to round up, because you talked about politics, let's go back to politics. Since you are an advocate and we know that you have a long queue of followers, any plans of venturing into politics?
Well, I don't know. I'm not a Nigerian. I don't have a Nigerian passport. And so, which means that I cannot contest for political positions in Nigeria. I have my eyes on political opportunities in the UK, whether as a local councillor or as an MP. It's something that I've been dreaming of. It's something that I hope will happen. And if it doesn't happen, it's okay. But one thing that I'm really invested in Nigeria is to appeal to Nigerians to please get it right in 2023. There are so many people who want to become Nigerian presidents, who want to become National Assembly members. And the question you need to start asking is, for what reason? Is it for their own pocket or to better Nigeria? And asking them questions, expecting from them plans that you can use to hold them accountable. Stop collecting money from them. Because the 5,000, the 10,000, the 20,000 that they will give you will only last you a few hours. But the pain that they will inflict on you and your children will last you a lifetime. And you have to make a choice. You really do have to make a choice. And that choice starts from asking questions that will hold politicians accountable and let them know enough is enough. They cannot continue to take Nigeria and Nigerians for a fool. Nigerians are in charge. Your vote matters, because if it doesn't, they will not be out trying to bribe you and buying it from you. If your vote does not count, they will not be doing everything possible to rig the election. So vote, defend your vote, and stand by your vote. That's all I have to say.
Interesting. All right, now, so we'd like to get your last words to Nigerians, especially with regards to checking their status, their HIV status. We'd like to get your last words on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think that's a very great way to end this interview. And it's to encourage everyone watching, everyone listening to this program, that HIV doesn't kill. It's a stigma, it's a shame. And the thing about this is, I have a mantra: you cannot shame the shameless. I celebrate the fact that I'm HIV positive. I take my medication, and that is why for 18 years, I am as healthy as anyone can be. My appeal to you, if you're watching or listening to this program, is get tested. If you've been sexually active, if you don't know the HIV status of the person you've had sex with, or if you've had an unprotected sex, get tested. And when you test positive, please, please, please take your medication, adhere to your medication, live your life. Don't care what people have to say. And if you tested negative, talk to your doctor about getting on pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is PrEP. PrEP is a drug that you can take that can prevent you from getting HIV. HIV does not have a cure at the moment, but it has effective drugs that can manage the virus, and they save lives. So take them.
All right, what a way to anchor this conversation. Thank you so much for your time with us, Bisi Alimi, HIV and LGBTQ advocate. It's been a wonderful time having this talk with you.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate sticking with you.
Great. All right, viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. That's where we draw the curtain on this episode of The Conversation. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have been talking to Bisi Alimi. He is an HIV and LGBTQ plus community advocate. It has been a wonderful time here on The Conversation. Keep watching The Conversation, because you never know who my next guest will be and what my next topic will be all about. I will see you next time. From the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabelle Oji. God bless Nigeria.